Okay.
Yeah, we're just going to wait for a minute here and have this meeting start at 1 o'clock sharp. Well, good afternoon, council and staff. Today is April 13th, 2021. Welcome to our council meeting of today. Welcome to those of you who may be joining in via YouTube today. And we'll get our meeting started. So I'll call the meeting to order. And I'll ask for a moment of silent reflection so we may reflect upon our duties of today. Please. Thank you. I'll ask council at this time if there's any declaration of pecuniary interest to say now or to at time of subject.
Mayor, I have a conflict of interest, a pecuniary interest on R6, please.
R6, Councillor. Okay, Councillor War, thank you. Anyone else at this time? All right, thank you. I'm looking for a motion then to approve the agenda for April 13th, which is today, 2021, be approved as circulated. A motion by Councillor Walsh, seconded by Deputy Mayor Burt. All in favor? That's carried. Thank you. Approval of the minutes for council meeting minutes of March 23rd. Recommendation that the minutes from the regular meeting of council held on March 23rd be adopted as presented and or as amended. Councillor Archer, seconded by Councillor War, and that's as presented, I assume. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much. Any business arising from those minutes? Okay, seeing no hands, then we're on to the consent agenda, which would be C1 through C5 and R1 through R3 be received for information as circulated. A motion for that, Deputy Mayor Burt, seconded by Councillor Archer. Is there any discussion on any of these topics? Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment on R3 with the first quarter water and wastewater report. Just good to see that all the camera work that's being done is resulting in some savings in the water and the wastewater usage. So good work getting all those leaks fixed.
Yes, as much as a motion goes by pretty quick when we just turn around and take it, we don't want to just I guess butter it up by saying that you know, it's good work on staff's behalf for bringing this forward for us, and it is a good news scenario for Asphodel-Norwood. So thank you very much, staff. All right, we have the motion and duly seconded. All in favor then, please. And that's carried. Thank you. All right, on to reports then. R1 would be Shane Smith, our bylaw officer. First, oh, sorry. Nope. We're moving on to delegations and presentations, I'm sorry, and there is none today. So staff and committee reports then. R4 would be Daryl Payne, our fire chief, and this has to do with fire safety grant transfer payment agreement. Daryl, the floor is yours, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. On March 11th, the government of Ontario announced a $5 million grant to all the municipal fire services to help assist with the COVID-19 pandemic we've had in the last, going on to our second year now. So we're asking council today to enter into that agreement so we've received the funds that they're going to allocate to the township of Asphodel-Norwood. So as through their formula, they've come up with a funding for $5,600 for the township. And after a review with firefighter staff and a municipal office, we come up with that we would like to purchase with this money a computer for the fire chief, a computer for Station 1, a computer for Station 2, a tablet for Station 1, a tablet for Station 2, and a tablet for fire prevention. This certainly was unforeseen, and it's going to help out with us moving into the 21st century and with our training and with our fire prevention, and the money can be well spent and go forward with it.
Thank you, Daryl. Any comments or concerns from council at this time about this report? Okay, seeing no hands, then I'm looking for a motion then to receive and then to enter into this agreement for the grant transfer payment. Motion by Councillor Walsh, seconded by Deputy Mayor Burt. All in favor? And that's carried. Thanks a lot, Daryl. R5 then would be Ed Whitmore, our Chief Building Official Planning Coordinator, and this has to do with consent file B26-21/Stockdale. Ed, the floor is yours, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. Okay, this is a very simple consent application for a lot addition. It's a farm, 2 farms side by side, and they want to sever off a chunk of land and add it to the existing farm. So right there you can see they want to add that to the existing farm. Is at the top of the page, and the green is what's being severed off. And so the application was made to the County of Peterborough. This is for 2449 Asphodel 4th line in our township. The stats on the property, it's 894 feet of frontage and about 34.06 acres. That will be added to the existing farm. In order to do this, they'll need to complete a merger agreement, and then that'll be brought forward to council at a later time. And also we will go through a zoning bylaw amendment application. The municipal appraisal form has been attached. It's the very last page of the report. And so we have to rezone the retained parcel to the satisfaction of the township. And the merger agreement. So the retained parcel will be rural exception zone. Right now it's just straight rural, and so we'll rezone it to the rural exception zone just to recognize the minimum lot area, because that part that's left over is about 12.87 hectares of land, and the minimum size of a rural farm is 30 hectares according to our zoning bylaw. So we'll just rezone it to that exception, and it'll be a beautiful 28-acre farm. It'll be perfect. So back to the report, you'll see that the consent application has been included, the notice of the application and the preliminary severance review has been completed, and then the municipal appraisal form, which we've completed. So everything appears that this is going to comply and conform with the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe policies, the county official plan policies, the township official plan policies, just as soon as the zoning amendment has been completed. So we always take care of doing the zoning bylaw amendment application with the owner and help them through that process. And the applicant will have their lawyer draw up the merger agreement that we bring back to council at a later time. So just you know, this will come back to us probably a couple more times. And if there's any questions, just let me know.
Okay, Council, any questions at this time? It's pretty straightforward. Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Yeah, not so much of a question, just a comment. It's nice to see the retained portion a little larger than normal. And like you said, Ed, it will be I think it will be a well sought after piece of property if they do choose to sell it, or whether they keep that for family or whatever. So yeah, just a comment. Don't have any questions. It seems pretty straightforward for the consent.
Great, thanks. Anyone else at this time? Councillor Walsh, please. You're muted, sir.
Sorry, through you, Mayor. I just really just to re-echo what Deputy Mayor Burt said, that it's nice to see what is being left, the retained portion being left, leaving a nice size for somebody that does want to come out and buy a small farm piece of property in the area that they've got close to 30 acres to work with. So well done. Thanks for presenting it, Ed.
You're welcome.
Okay, no other questions or comments at this time. Then we're looking for a motion then to approve this consent file and to direct staff to provide the form to the County Land Division. Motioned by Councillor War, seconded by Councillor Archer. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. So the next one, Councillor War, you have a conflict of interest. If you're already muted, if you just want to take your picture off for now, then we'll carry on. No, now you unmute it. Just blank yourself out. Perfect. Okay, so for the record, Councillor War has basically stepped out of the room. And so our sixth then would be Ed Whitmore, our Chief Building Official Planning Coordinator. And this one's regarding a consent file B27-21/Crowley. Ed, the floor is yours again, sir.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. So again, this is another very simple consent application. The application has been submitted by LLF lawyers on behalf of the owners. This property is 617 Center Line, and it is a farm-related consent in order to relieve themselves of the dwelling that is currently on the farm property. So it's going to, by severing off the existing residential dwelling, by definition, it creates a new residential lot that's surplus to a farming operation. When you go through a severance for a farm that is not a technical severance, then according to the provincial policy statement and the official plan, there's all kinds of items that have to be addressed, and it's the only chances of having a severance would be if you is a surplus dwelling to the farming. The retained portion, once the residence has been severed off, that it's zoned to prohibit residential dwellings or uses, and the existing dwelling would be surplus to the farm needs. Also, the residence, it's not required for that farm. The severed lands, the surplus residents will have a minimum lot frontage and minimum lot area. So they do not like to see small farms like we just had this 28-acre size of farm that I think that is wonderful for the township, and it's going to be a great benefit to Asphodel-Norwood. When you're doing an actual farm severance, and the reason that the previous one was okay was because that was a technical severance and we did a lot addition and it worked out wonderful for everybody. But this is they're severing off the surplus dwelling. So they would like to see this as minimum size is required in order to keep the farm property as large as possible. I disagree with what they're wanting to do, because I think that we need a diversified farm use sizes, And in the future, our official plan is going to be modified to allow us to have some smaller farm parcels at a later time. But back to this report. So the minimum distance separation had to be completing, and the existing building has to be habitable. So if you comply with all of those, then you can go ahead and do a farm severance if it's surplus to the farming operation. So we've checked out all the existing information that was provided to us from the county. They gave us a notice of the application, they gave us the consent application, the preliminary severance review, and we've completed the municipal appraisal form. So when you see the preliminary severance review, it showed that due to the minimum distance separation requirement, that this farm severance was not possible because you have to comply with the minimum distance separation for an existing barn that was on the property. The owners have since taken down and demolished the existing barn, which is, to me, it's a shame again, but those are what the rules are. And now, due to having this barn demolished and removed, it complies with all of the requirements out there. So it does. It complies with the provincial policy statement, the county official plan, the township official plan. The MDS setbacks are not applicable anymore. And it appears to comply with the growth plan for the Greater Golden Horseshoe policies. Everything appears to be good for the severed and the retained lands. So the requirements on our municipal appraisal form, you have to rezone the severed parcel to the satisfaction of the municipality. Right now it's zoned agricultural, and we'll have to rezone it to rural residential. So we'll be bringing that back. And we help the applicant with the completing of that paperwork for them. We also have to rezone the retained parcels to the satisfaction of the municipality, which means we have to comply with the provincial policy and rezone that farmland to prohibit residential uses. So again, we'll help them complete that at the same time. And that's all there is for this one. So everything looks very good. It's neat and tidy. And if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer them.
Council, any questions at this time? Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Yeah, I have a few comments and a couple questions. Are you, if the chair will allow that? First of all, just a comment. It is very good to see the lands being farmed and in use, because we want to keep our agricultural lands working and growing our food. I couldn't agree with you more, Ed, about the minimum lot area with the surplus dwelling. I wish, and I know that will come forward with the new official plan. I really wish we had something in place, because this has been happening over the years in our township several times, where when the excess dwelling is severed off, it's a very minimal amount of land, and it can't really be used for anything other than a house. So yeah, my concerns are certainly there, and I think we've all aired those before. So I guess looking forward, when we do the official plan, we can certainly look at trying to get larger parcels in there. But like you say, the setbacks and the frontages and everything are all in place at this time. I just had a question on the page on the adjacent lands. It does state that there's the one on the north is Giroux. There is actually the other one that is more applicable right across from where the severance is, and that just wasn't listed. So you just might need to tidy that one up a little bit. It's and you'll know the name on there. So because that's two separate lots. And then I just had a question on the MDS, because the barn on the property is now gone. The barn and the silo has been torn down. The property to the east, they have livestock, but I'm not sure. I think their barns are closer to the next line over. So that does the MDS cross property lines, or does it just stay on the property where it's being severed? So that's one question. And then, is there a limit on severances on farms?
Yes.
This would be the fourth over the years. Now, many years ago, the other ones were done because there's 2 homes plus an empty lot, and then this would be the fourth. So I was just wondering about that. And that's it for now. I may have other questions if other council members would like to speak.
Mike,
Ed.
I could answer or comment on some of Deputy Mayor Burt's comments if it's allowable.
Yes, please.
Okay, so the application comes to us as is, and sometimes the information is incorrect or it's lacking or whatever, and we as an agency, we're sort of just like the health unit. The authority is from the county of Peterborough, and so we get the application, and I wish that sometimes it would be more thorough and more accurate, but we just have to deal with the paperwork that they provide us, and
Okay.
it's not always 100% the way that it should be. Anyways, the MDS ARC is calculated by the county of Peterborough, and they look at every single building and they do up their ARC details to make sure that this would comply with all those other neighboring barns across the road to the west, to the east. It could be, and the sizes of them, and they do as many ARCs as required. And so it has been thought about and looked at for those other ones. They also, in the preliminary severance review, they also have this 120-meter buffer and a 30-meter vegetation protection zone. So anytime that you have features on your property, it makes it more and more difficult to enlarge your severance, because you're not supposed to sever if there's a little stream nearby. You're not supposed to sever if there's sometimes a wooded area or species at risk or anything. So there's just more rules and that we have to deal with all of the time to try to fit this in. So that's why some severances are smaller and smaller and smaller, because if there's any features, then, because I just seen one that was, you know, they wanted to have the property 600 feet deep, but yet there was a little stream back there and that put a no on it. So if they just shortened it by 100 or 200 feet, then all of a sudden now they're outside that buffer area and then it can proceed. So anyways, it's a stick handling maneuver, some of these applications. Is there any other questions or comments?
Council, go ahead. Councillor Walsh, please.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, again. And again, this is just kind of echoing Deputy Mayor Burt's around the official plan. I guess my only concern is, you know, we're leaving basically a house, 2 acres. In my mind, the reality of somebody wanting to buy a piece of property in the country is to have a bit of acreage to be able to do something on. And 2 acres is pretty small. So I'm hoping, again, as we go through and review our official plan going forward, that, you know, we maybe take that into consideration a little bit more. That
Yes, we will.
yeah, at this point, there's not really much we can do to put a hold on that.
Thank you for that. Did I see any other hands from councillors at this time? Okay, Candace, you had your hand up, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I just want to remind council that the official plan needs to be approved by the province. So any discussions that we're having in regards to our wish list, such as different diverse agricultural parcels, doesn't necessarily mean that it would be supported or approved, but we are able to propose it. Just want to remind you that we are not basically in control of our own destiny in that regard. But we will be giving it our best shot and our best justification. And council will have lots of more opportunities to speak on that. But unfortunately, it's not the policy that exists today. But hopefully the province and the upper tier supports us in that regard once we get to that stage.
Yep, awesome. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks for that. Deputy Mayor Burt, you said you might have a few more comments to make or a question?
Actually, Ed had answered my question when he talked about the vegetated protective zone. I got that. And so I really don't, I guess there was the one question, and it was right at the end. And with this being the 4 severances, if there has been in the past limits or that sort of thing. And again, I know these are very, very old severances, the previous 3. So I just curious about that.
Yes, I can speak to that again if you wish.
Yes, Ed, please.
Yes, if the lot exists August 1st, 1983, then it's eligible for 2 severances. If it's a rural zone and it complies with all the other stuff. If it's an agricultural zone, no. Severance is permitted unless it's surplus to farming.
Okay,
but it has
thank
to
you.
exist at this date of August 1st, 1983. And again, the new official plan, we're not going to have that date in there.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ed. My only comment, I guess, about this is I'll echo what the other councillors have said about the size, but I just have to say that I do know a few people from the city that move out this way, and 2 acres is quite massive for them, considering they've cut their lawn with scissors for the last 20 years too. So, I mean, it's funny how different people view different things. Like, we're used to open spaces here and a lot of room and one thing after another, but a person coming in from the city that's just looking to get away and enjoy the country, it's still going to be quite refreshing and nice for them too. So just looking at the other perspective of how that works. So,
yep.
Okay, thanks, Ed, for that. So I'm looking then for a motion to approve and direct staff to provide the consent to send the form to County Land Division for this one here on the Crowley one. Motioned by Councillor Archer, seconded by Councillor Walsh. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you. So I'll ask Councillor Ward to come back into the office or into the chamber then, please. And the time would be 1:26. And then we'll move on to the next one, which would be R7, which would be Ed Whitmore, again, our Chief Building Official Planning Coordinator. And this one has to do with regarding a merger agreement / Carter. Ed, the floor is yours again, sir.
Thank you, Mayor. Yes, the purpose of the merger agreement is to satisfy a condition of consent application B69-19. So in November 26, 2019, we brought forward to council the consent application. Council supported it at that time, and we sent the municipal appraisal form back to the County of Peterborough. The application was to do a lot addition, which left a parcel of land having 288 feet of frontage. Actually, the lot addition was for 288 feet of frontage in an area of about 25 acres, and they added this to the existing farm. And it left a residential lot having 250 feet of frontage and a lot area of about 1.26 acres. It's right on the 10th line. It's a perfect location in proximity to the village. I think it's going to be probably sold and built on if it's put on the market right away, because that's an ideal location. The County of Peterborough, they passed the severance, the 2019 severance application in April 29th, 2020. It included the conditions to rezone the Severed to the satisfaction of the township and to enter into a merger agreement with the township. So December 15th, 2020, I brought forward the zoning bylaw amendment application, and we completed that part. We rezoned it to the satisfaction of the municipality. Now, in here we've attached the merger agreement. It was just provided to us from the applicant's lawyer, and the acknowledgement and direction letter from MKC Law Office is attached with the report. And so once this is approved and as per the recommendation, we'll be able to let the land division know that they've satisfied the conditions of rezoning the property to the satisfaction of the municipality, and they've entered into the merger agreement to the satisfaction of the township. And then it'll be hopefully a done deal between the applicant and land division to tidy anything else up.
Okay,
Any
thanks, Ed.
questions?
Yep, very good. Any questions from council at this time? Pretty straightforward on this one. Okay, seeing no hands, then I'm looking for a motion then to authorize the mayor and the clerk to execute the merger agreement / Carter with the Corporation of Asphodel-Norwood. Motion by Councillor Moore, seconded by Councillor Archer. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you, and thanks, Ed, for all that. All right, R8 would be Kyle Beacock, our Water Wastewater Operations Manager, and this is regarding an award tender of 2021-07 about our Belmont Pumping Station electrical upgrades. Kyle, the floor is yours, sir, and you're muted.
Good afternoon, Council. So this is regarding the award of tender 2021-07, and we're looking for Council to receive this report regarding the award of said tender and the Belmont Pumping Station electrical upgrades, and further that the Council of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood awards tender 2021-07 to Ferguson Electric. A little background here. So Belmont Pumping Station is that little pumping station to the south of Highway 7 at the corner of Mill and Highway 7. It services all down Highway 7 and Belmont Street. Currently, right now, the station, it's pretty dated. The cabinet that is actually pole mounted is in pretty rough shape. It would need to be done anyways. Hydro utilities now, they don't allow you to put anything on their poles. It's not our pole, it's theirs. So we would have to move that anyways. So staff was looking at kind of trying to be efficient here with having that work done, and also providing some provisions for backup power, as there's no provision for any backup power there, or even like a portable generator setup. So that's where this tender was kind of generated from. In 2019, we received some money from the provincial government to find efficiencies within the township. So it was decided that this money would go towards these station upgrades. The tender is very similar to work that was done last year at Maple Avenue Pumping Station, where we took two older panels and we combined them into one newer stainless cabinet just to clean the site up. And we also added soft starters to provide some electrical efficiencies. So the same kind of work would be happening here. We've got two separate panels, one housing the pump starters, the other one's housing the PLC and the radio controls and the alarming communications and all that. So we would bring all that into one panel. Also add a transfer switch so that if we had any long duration power outage, we'd be able to provide some backup power there. So that was the plan here with this tender. We received two submissions for this tender, one from Ferguson Electric, one from Hatfield. Township has worked with both of them. Ferguson did the electrical work on the water plant upgrades back in 2016 and 17. Hatfield's done work here at the wastewater plant and also done work at Maple Pumping Station. As you can see here by the price, Ferguson slid in about $8,000 under. So staff would like to recommend that we award the tender to Ferguson Electric out of Coburg. Once again, this will be coming, we budgeted for $45,000 of capital within the wastewater budget for 2021 to use up some of the sufficiency funding for this project. If there's any questions or comments, I take them now.
Thanks, Kyle. That was a good report and good news. Any questions from council at this time on this well-written report? All right, that's just how good it goes, Kyle. When it's well-written and we understand it and it's in black and white, we got it.
I like it.
Yes, sir. Okay, so we're looking, you've heard Kyle say this a couple times, but the motion is to receive and they award the tender to Ferguson Electrical for the pumping. Councillor Walsh, Deputy Mayor Burt, all in favor? And that's carried. Thank you, and thank you very much, Kyle.
Great, thanks all.
Thank you.
Thanks, Kyle.
All right, R9 then would be Jeff Walden, our Manager of Public Works and Environmental Services. And this is a big one, Jeff. It's regarding the award of tender 2021-06, our Centerline Road Construction Project.
Yeah,
Floor is yours, sir.
thanks, Mayor. Good afternoon, Mayor and Council. Yeah, this is a big day. As far as our milestones, we're pretty much back on track. Maybe a bit longer of a process than that was anticipated. As you can see in the tender, they were opened on March 16th. Four tenders went out and only the one had come back. So unfortunately, we only had one bid, which it is nice to see 2 or 3 bids just to kind of give you the market a better handle on it. But it didn't work out for us. I said unfortunately. So the one bid was received from Drain Brothers for just over 2.4 million. So as noted earlier in the report, our funding amount was the 1.7 million, which that includes everything. That's the engineering and everything at full cost. So the tender opened on March 16th. Wasn't great news for us coming in at 2.4 million. So staff, as well as the consulting engineer who was engaged, who was hired early on in the process, went back to the drawing board. A post-tender addendum was issued. The whole job was reviewed again just for seeking some savings. The geotechnical report was reviewed again. The job was kind of designed with engaged in township staff. We went above, probably a little above what the geotechnical report had originally said. Geotechnical is a great tool. The drilling, they come in, they do boreholes every 500 meters, which we had done, and then see what's going on underneath that road base. The staff is more familiar with the roads, so just to make sure we were catching all the soft spots that always boil up, the common ones that boil up in the spring where you see that there's an issue, just to make sure we were catching everything. We re-reviewed, we had some additional excavation in there. So going back to the drawing board with the geotechnical investigations, we were able to maybe jig the job a little bit, back off on some of the bigger excavations and top up with gravel where we felt confident, but not jeopardize the integrity of the overall road project, just to seek some cost savings. So the post-tender addendum was issued and rebid on with the new quantities that the engineer provided, Drain Brothers, and you can see that the bid come back with the 2.1, just over 2.1 with the HST included. An important note was, as well as the tender for the construction did not include some of the stuff we've highlighted there, which we did the tree work, the engineering, the geotechnical investigation, the hydro and bell. There's some relocations to do with that, and there's provisional items. And again, we highlighted in the report that this is the worst case scenario. That's the provisional items, and should be caught with some of the extra excavation that we've agreed to carry out in the plan. So anyways, still a bit above our funding award amount, but with the help of the gas tax funding and some of the reserves, we hope to award the job to Drain Brothers Excavating for completion this year in 2021. So if there's any questions or anything that.
Thanks, Jeff. Councillor Archer, I see your hand, please.
Yeah, Jeff, what's the time frame to have it completed, and when you plan on starting, and when do you think it'll be finished?
There's a pre-construction meeting through Emera, pre-construction meeting this week. If the job's awarded, we anticipated a pre-construction meeting this week with a May 3rd start, and hopefully the weather cooperates. We'd really like to have the surface treatment down kind of like towards mid to late September,
Right.
just to catch some of that heat. The surface treatment it's a unique animal, and maybe I'm repeating myself, but it's not like a hot mix. You do need a bit of warm weather, so you try to get it down as soon as you can and catch some of the heat so the traffic can keep manipulating the stone into the emulsion. So.
Well, that's what I was concerned about, if it got on too late in the fall before it was finished. So, but September would be good. Thanks.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Ward, please.
Thank you, through you, Mayor. Jeff, I was just wondering, with the scope of this work, at any of the intersections, are there any, is there going to be any lights, additional lights at some of those intersections along the center line? Like some that might be a little bit tricky, you know, to navigate now that it might be a paved road where people may be traveling at a faster speed?
Through you, Mayor, no, we didn't anticipate any street lighting at the intersections. There's a lot of improvements to the intersections that hopefully some daylighting work that some sightline improvements, but no, we didn't anticipate any illumination.
Okay.
Deputy Mayor Burt, your hand, please.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. Jeff, I just wondered, you said that 4 tenders were picked up, 1 came in. Was there any indication from the other 3 who picked up the tenders as to the reason why they chose not to bid it in the end? Do you hear from that? Do you hear that or at all, or no?
Yeah, through you, Mayor, absolutely. They had actually written, and I do truly respect the businesses when they looked at the scope of work and the timeline. We received letters from 2 of them that basically said that our job would deserve 110% of their attention, and they've just got too much on their plate this year to give it their all to guarantee the timeline and the completion dates. So now we received 2 letters, basically not worded the same, but worded the same sort of thing. Right. They've got enough work on their plate, which I do truly respect their honesty. In that situation, that, you know, they can understand what they're capable of, and they're not going to get in over their head. Especially, it is a tight timeline. It's center line is a lot of earth and culverts, but it is a long stretch. So, but yes.
Mm-hmm. Okay, thank you.
Any other questions from council? Yes, Councillor Walsh, please.
Through you, Mayor. Jeff, if we get to say mid-September and we're not at the point of putting the surface treatment on it because it's worst case scenario, we have delays, and we're starting to get cooler weather, and you said it really likes to have some heat to really kind of work it in the road, would we then entertain surface treatment, would wait till following spring? Or is that not really a good thing to have happen?
Well, through you, Mayor, I guess that maybe Candace could help me out with the funding end of it. Ideally, yes, if you get to that point, it probably would be the best interest to look at next year, but the funding, I would be unsure of how that would.
Go ahead, Candace.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, so in theory, yes, we would like to obviously ensure that the product is going down to give us the best success rate, because we live with that product and we have to maintain that product for many years. We are bound to a contribution agreement with the federal and provincial governments. So that being said, we will have to gauge the project as we are getting closer and put in a submission for an extension of a request for extension, and hope that we are granted it. We have never been denied an extension request, as long as it is a good justification, and especially with pandemic conditions, they have been more than willing to grant any extensions to any construction projects, as long as you're approving and showing progress.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Yeah, that's great. Great news. All right, no other questions or comments at this time then from council? Okay, seeing no hands then. So we're looking then for a motion then to receive and award the tender to Drain Brothers, and that we approve the allocation from our gas tax reserve and our road construction reserve in order to help cover costs. Motioned by Councillor War, seconded by Councillor Archer. All in favor? And that is carried. Okay, thanks, Jeff. That was that's going to be big for the township, that one for sure. Okay, R10 then, this is report with Candace White, our CAO, clerk/treasurer, and this has to do with regarding the review of the Trent River access points as detailed in bylaw 2019-49, parks and facilities. Please, Candace.
Thank you, Mayor. So as directed by council last year, staff was asked to bring back a report to reopen this topic of conversation prior to the season starting. So staff is bringing it forward in April so council can have a chat to take a look at the topic and if there's any changes that are going to be necessary when we enter into the season. So basically we're determining whether we're changing anything or we're starting this season in the same position in which we left it off last season. As council can remember, due to the pandemic, we were experiencing, like plenty other regions, we're experiencing the influx of tourism traffic and congregations in mass numbers at our parks and boat launches and access points to the water. We are getting word from the tourism sector and PCAD that we do anticipate the same type of activity, if not more, for this season. As we know, probably if you were to compare where we were this date in 2020 to where we are now, we're probably in a worse situation than what we were last April from a pandemic perspective. So to answer the concerns, Township Council approved amending our parks and facilities bylaw, which accomplished a couple of things. Once we prohibited activities at the access points, the prohibited activities included swimming, fishing, day camping, picnicking, barbecuing, or using any other method of cooking or preparing food, and of course accessing private property. As you can anticipate, barbecuing or using any other method of cooking or preparing food. Some of these activities probably should be prohibited regardless of the pandemic because they just create a danger to neighboring properties as well as the township owned property, as well as the amendment to bylaw 2017-05, which just addressed and regulated the parking in that area. So the Public Works Department did go out and create more of a designated parking zone so that vehicles weren't being parked in the launch or directly beside the launch or the access that was creating definitely some health and safety concerns, as well as prohibiting others from using the launch because they weren't parking appropriately. So by widening that area, we were able to create an area for trucks and boats and vehicles to access the trail, as well as access that Trent River access point safely and get the vehicles up and out of the way. As you can see, attached to the staff report is an email that was received from a resident who was representing 3 other residents in the township, and they are asking Township Council to take a look at the bylaw and amend it to allow swimming in this area and to prohibit motorized boats, I believe is what they're asking for. At this time, staff is leaving it with council for direction, and based on your direction, we'll ensure that all the changes are made prior to the season starting, which, believe it or not, is not going to be long from now. Especially, I think summer may show up a bit early based on what the dry weather and the warm weather we're seeing to date. So I'll take any questions, comments, or concerns from council.
Go ahead, council. The floor is open. Who'd like to speak? Councillor Ward, please.
Through you, Mayor. I see that swimming is one of the options that the residents would like, and I can completely understand residents wanting access to the water, especially in the summertime. Has there been any consideration that perhaps this boat on 5th concession does not have any motorized boats, and that we maybe reduce our carbon footprint on the lake and just make this access for canoes, kayaks, maybe stand-up paddle boats and swimming only, still keep no picnicking or any of that, but make it so that you know, it truly is a safer place for people to go and enjoy a swim from that point.
Is that a question for me?
I'm just putting it out there for.
Okay, I think that's probably something for your fellow
Yeah, it's just-
counselors to consider, because staff have looked at it from all different scenarios, and from our perspective, the situation that existed that last year that brought on the bylaw amendment still exists today. We haven't seen a change, and the season hasn't yet even started to really know what we're going to be dealing with. So the bylaw could come back once, twice, 3 times over the course of the year, depending on what the pandemic dishes us, I guess, in 2021. We just really don't know what it's going to be like. So fortunately, we don't have a crystal ball. We don't know what that's going to be. And I think we just all have to understand that we're going to have to be a bit flexible, I think, with this decision, and know that it's fluid, and this document is living and breathing, and it can come back and have amendments at any point in time, depending on what the township is dealing with when it comes to tourism traffic.
Right.
Yeah. Thanks, Councillor Warrior. That's a segue to opening up a conversation here, basically.
Yeah.
So yeah, we'll just carry on. Councillor Walsh, then, please, your thoughts.
Yeah, just to kind of build on Councillor Warrior, I guess, do we have any sense of how busy of boat launch use that is down there?
It's busy.
It is busy? Okay.
Yeah, it's busy. Next to Birdsall Wharf, it would be the second busiest spot in the township.
Okay. And then my other comment, and then I'll open it up to the rest of the team, is, I guess, to the point is, if we make an adjustment to the regulation now, and let's say we allow swimming, and then a month from now or 6 weeks from now, we're inundated down at that location, and we have to go back in and readdress it. So we're going to change the bylaw once, change the bylaw twice, change signs twice, versus the thought of, yes, it is restrictive. Yes, I'm also listening and trying to understand to local residents, but do we just leave things the way they are, monitor it for the first part of the spring and summer? If we find that traffic flow is a lot less than what we experienced last year, personally for me, I'm very much opening it up to being a swimming location for our local residents only. And then that would mean we change the bylaw once versus changing it now, changing signs 6-8 weeks from now. We're inundated with visitors, and we got to go back in and change it, and change the bylaw a second time, change signs a second time. Do we just kind of leave status quo for now, monitor it, understanding there's some concerns from local residents being able to use it, and we address it if we feel that things are in a better position that we could relax the bylaw?
Hey, thanks for your comments. We'll come back to this again after. Deputy Mayor Burt, please.
Yeah, thank you, through you, Mayor. Yeah, and I know this was stated last year when we had this lengthy conversation, and it, with these types of bylaws, it just feels like we're putting a bylaw on common sense, and unfortunately, common sense went out the window last year with many people coming from outside the area, and what has worked for decades there all of a sudden didn't work last year, and unfortunately, we are in the same place this year. And I think the important thing to think about is they are access points, they aren't parks. So they're not meant for congregating and hanging out. They're access points to the lake. And keeping, certainly the camping, picnicking, barbecuing, all of that needs to stay in that bylaw, because I think that's good and that's needed. And certainly the parking has improved immensely down there, and it's certainly much better. I think Barry has a good point. It'd be nice as people come down, early part of May, mid-May, end of May, and see that, oh, we can't swim here, we can't fish here, we can't do anything here. They'll leave and go elsewhere. We can take a look at it, and come the 1st of June, then we can open it up, and that would be a perfect case scenario, and I would love to see that happen. Whether that happens or not, I don't know, because it is too bad for our local residents who have used it for years. It really is a shame that we put that on there. And I don't think the bylaw was intended to, if somebody sees, one person swimming down there cooling off to call the police. That's not what it was intended for. It was intended for groups of people who are spending the day there, and I don't want to say wreaking havoc, but essentially they were. So I think a common sense approach to the bylaw is important too, that if somebody is sitting down there watching a grandchild swim and cool off, I don't think that stands to have the OPP called. So there's, like I say, to me, it feels like we're putting a bylaw on common sense.
I'm in a meeting.
Oh, sorry. I don't really have any questions. I see both points from Barry, and I see the point from Paula. I don't think it hurts to wait. What are we, middle of April, middle of May? I don't think it hurts to wait 6 weeks and take another look at it. I know it's more work for staff and it's more work for us, but there's not a lot of swimming going on before May 24th. So it might not hurt to put this on the agenda for maybe the last meeting in May or the first meeting in June and make a concrete decision then. Just a thought.
Yeah,
Sorry,
thanks.
I rambled.
No, that's okay. Good comment. I just had somebody come to my door and I hit my mute button by accident. Sorry about that. Councillor Archer, we're going to try to get everybody's opinion here as councillor are talking. So you could be next, sir.
Okay, through you, Mayor. I would support the thoughts of Barry and on holding off till June to make a decision on making any changes there. So.
Okay, good. Thanks. Candace, you had your hand up too there, please.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. So just a couple of things to hopefully assist with the conversation. One, by changing the bylaw, I think it's important to remember we're not permitting swimming. We're not prohibiting it, because it is not, although it's an access point to the river, and that is an activity a resident may choose to do there if it's not prohibited, it is not a designated swimming area with the appropriate safety provisions put in place by the township to designate it as a swimming location. If it's designated as a swimming location, that is a completely other conversation, and that has to be taken a look at by our insurance company, lawyers. The township currently does not have any public beaches. And as soon as we designate it a swimming location, then we have to take a look at a whole other string of regulations. We're talking about whether we're going to prohibit. We've got to watch the language to state that we're not permitting and designating this area as a swimming location. Then the township is in care and control of a property that is permitting and encouraging that activity. And there is a big, although it seems like semantics, because you're not prohibiting it, obviously you must be permitting it, or why wouldn't you prohibit it? But I guess it's just, we're not designating it as that that type of area. But if it is council's wishes to move forward and designate a spot like that, then that is something that we'll have to take a deeper dive into and ensure that the township's liabilities are addressed. And from a risk management perspective, we have all of those check marks in the right boxes. It's not impossible to do. It's just, it's bigger than this conversation today. I would be agreeable to bring back the staff report to the June 8th meeting of council. I think that would allow enough time. I think the last meeting in May, on the 25th of May, may still, I would just like to have enough time to deal with the long weekend and get that data together, and just maybe one more weekend beyond that. May 2-4 triggers activity. Really, that's when it starts. So technically, we're only going to have 2 weeks of data at June 8th anyway, because not a lot happens before May 2-4. So I would suggest June 8th to take another look at it. And definitely, we have seen across the board as a township, municipalities, federal government, provincial governments, where all we've done for the last year is govern common sense. I agree, that's what we've had to do, because unfortunately, accountability is what society needs right now. But I'm hoping that our little spot hidden in the Trent River, it has been forgotten about, and that our local residents can get back to using it as it's traditionally been used. That being said, that area does require some work. The winter was not kind to that side of the river all the way along the township, actually. So we're going to have to take a look at those locations and make sure before anything's opened or anybody's utilizing it that it's safe to be used for any purpose.
Thanks, Candace. Deputy Mayor Burt, you have another comment?
Yeah, I think that's a good point to make. It is an access point, and I think I said that. We're not advertising this is the township swimming hole. I absolutely get that. It's an access to the river. However you access, whether you're walking in, boating in, throwing a canoe in, it is an access point only. And just on that point, I'm just looking for. All of the different access points in the township. And have there been any issues in other areas? Now, I realize a lot of them, it's not easy to get to. Certainly the one down at the end of our road and the one at the end of the 6th, somewhat blocked off. But have there been, people can certainly get out to them. Have there been any issues in other areas, or has this been the worst one?
Yes,
this is the worst one. Okay.
It is the one that has seen the most activity. We did have a couple of complaints at the Old Orchard Road access as well last year. The one that is considered that people utilize as a launch, the one further east is very similar to the one at the end of Humphreys Line, where you can't really access it. It's not an open road allowance, it's closed. So people could walk down and access it, but it's not used. But the one at Old Orchard Road did see a few complaints, and we did have to address it as staff last year, but not to the same degree. I think this area, because the trail access is right there, and I think because it's an easy access, and it's just known. Asphodel Heights, for whatever reason, doesn't seem to be utilized to the same probably degree that I would anticipate that it would be used, considering it's a municipal access point, but it's not used. And Birdsall Wharf, there was some challenges in Otonabee, South Monaghan, and ourselves as we share that location. And it is a government dock. We did chat with them, but people don't seem to swim off of it because it's such a known fishing location and boat launch location. It's too busy. So we just don't see it. There's lots of boats and trailers and activity there, but we don't see the conflict of, and it's an actual boat launch. We don't see the conflict from a health and safety perspective of the multiple uses coming together in a very narrow location, if that makes sense.
It does. Go ahead, Deputy Mayor Burt.
Yeah, just a comment on the Asphodel Heights. I think maybe part of that is it's somewhat hidden because you have to go right in, and for decades that was private. And so I think, local residents know that it is township owned now, but certainly I think a lot of outsiders, in quotations, or those from out of the region would assume that was still private. So probably best that it stays like that, but certainly
and even our locals don't use it.
Oh, okay.
It's quite quiet down there all the time. Yeah,
okay.
It's a very quiet little spot but I'm sure maybe after this meeting it won't be no longer.
Maybe.
Well, this is great. Thanks, Council, for a good discussion. I just have a couple of comments too that when we do get a letter like this that's brought forward to council and staff, that we do take it we take it to heart, and we do, well, obviously we really debate the situation here. The world's gone crazy right now. The pandemic's even worse than what it was before when we locked everything down and had everything barricaded from before, and we're going to try to not do that again this year unless we're over inundated. So just my thoughts going forward is that if we did try to change things up right now, then all of a sudden it did get crazy because it's not barricaded off. Where does that leave us? And it's an unmonitored space right now that we don't go down and check. And we don't want to leave it up to the residents that are living in the area to police that area. and then have a problem too. And then one thing leads to another. We've already had troubles in the township with one neighbor trying to enforce it himself on other things. So we can't go there at this time, I don't believe. And the way I'm understanding how council's talking here, it looks like we're ready to make a motion basically. And that's, I guess, would be to receive and then to stay status quo with what the bylaw is at right now, 2019-49, and then to revisit it again as of June the 8th, basically. We'll have another look at this. Does that sound like a decent motion then? All right, do I have somebody, Councillor Walsh, you want to make that motion?
Yeah, I will gladly make that motion that we will remain status quo on bylaw 2019-49, and it will be relooked at our June 8th meeting.
Do I have a seconder? Councillor Archer then, thank you. Looking all in favor then. Okay, that's carried. Great discussion and thank you. And thanks to those of you that did send the letter in. We do take every letter very serious in our township. R11 then, Candace, please, our CAO clerk/treasurer. This is regarding our management action list from council, please.
Thank you, Mayor. So you'll see that the reports that are in front of you today that were addressed on April 13th, you'll see what's coming up on April 27th. An official plan update. There will be a delegation that day from MHBC planners, which I'm going to get into more discussion during my CAO list. You'll see an update on the ATV regulation process, not the bylaw for consideration, but you will see an update and how we're moving forward with that decision. A couple of consent first quarter reports from building and finance. Hopefully we'll see the municipal tax rate bylaws. I think the county, they put their rates into Opta at the province. So we'll enter our rates and we'll get the sign off done and get the bylaws approved. So I'm pretty sure we'll be moving forward with that on April 27th. If not, it'll be May 11th. Development charges bylaw update and review. That won't be coming April 27th. Watson and Associates isn't completed with it, and I highly doubt that we're going to be completed in the next 2 weeks. It's a fair bit of work. You may not even see that till June. Actually, we still got a lot of road to cover there. Strategic plan, you're going to see an update coming forward to you in some capacity, whether it's during the CAO list like it's going to be today, whether it's a staff report, whether it's actually an exercise. It all depends on what part of the process we're in, but you're going to see that on every meeting to action list until we adopt the final document. Document retention bylaw, I'm hopeful. CIP program review, no, because we have to engage with all the businesses. I think we need to really understand the impact of the pandemic. It's not the right time for that. It's not fair to do that right now. So that is going to be pushed potentially till summer. Obviously, we'll add the access points to June 8th. And you see things there all the way out to July and onward. So I'll take any council questions.
Council, any questions at this time? Any comments, concerns?
Good.
All right, seeing none, then we'll take a motion then to receive and approve as discussed. Deputy Mayor Burt, seconded by Councillor Walsh. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you very much, Council. All right, on to correspondence for action would be C6, Eastern Ontario Wardens Caucus and Eastern Ontario Regional Network regarding eOrange Regional Gigabyte Broadband Project. What's Council's thoughts on this? Councillor Walsh, please.
Through you, Mayor, really just more of a comment, and I did pass this on to Candace, as the old saying goes, devil is in the details, and really, we just, from my perspective, selfishly, I just kind of want to know what kind of impact this is going to have on our township. We really don't know that a lot of it, what we're seeing so far is pretty high level. So it will be interesting as this project moves forward to really get understanding of what's this going to mean for the township of Asphodel-Norwood. Because we really can't tell from this letter.
Right. Deputy Mayor Burt, and you're muted. Thank you.
Yeah, I agree with Councillor Walsh. There's not a lot of details there. We know it's hopefully moving forward, and it's getting, Rogers, it sounds like, is the Eastern Ontario end of things. It's getting that last mile into place for more rural communities, and how that's going to affect us and those homes and businesses that really have very limited access right now. And it's been a high priority everywhere. And to get this moving forward in a timely way, I think is on everyone's radar. And particularly now we're moving back into online schooling at home. So again, the problems will come forward. So yeah, not a lot of details in the letter, but hopefully we can move forward soon.
Okay, Candace, you had your hand up.
Yes, it isn't uncommon at this stage of the process, as procurement hasn't taken place, where they are not releasing all of the finer details that all of us would like to know. It's not being handed out. It's not like we know it and are just not providing it. We have no idea. I can tell you, based on the meetings that I have participated in, Asphodel-Norwood has not been left out of the conversation. I think it's, and I mentioned this to Councillor Walsh during our discussion, is we are, believe it or not, strategically located because the majority of our township is between Highway 7 and County Road 2. The bulk. I mean, we have obviously some north of Highway 7 and some south of County Road 2, but the main bulk runs between those two main corridors, with a main corridor of Centerline Road that we are just reconstructing right in between that. And all of the conversation that I've had heard, that is, you're going to see upgrades in Asphodel-Norwood. Which company is going to get awarded the project from the province will determine which supplier provides it. Nexacom's at the table, ExploreNet's at the table, Rogers at the table, and every single one of them has a different layout and a different approach to provide servicing to this pocket of the province. So once the province, the bigger conversation should be pushing them to make these decisions, so then the procurement can happen, so that we can get to the table and advocate for our area with the actual suppliers that has been identified. It's hard right now. You're throwing conversation into the wind kind of feeling, because you don't know who you're going to be dealing. We just are all supporting it in general terms across the board because we all need it. But as soon as the province has identified and awarded the successful project proponents, and the procurement process has happened, and that supplier has been identified, then we'll go at it, and then we'll be able to have those conversations with the right people and make sure that we get as much of the pie as we possibly can. It's going to be a priority, definitely. I suspect in the third quarter of 2021.
Yeah, thanks for the input on that, Candace. I do know that different procurements and one thing after another, like real estate gets involved because they try to find attractive land. They talk to different homeowners in the area that try to find a different spot. They try to go for a little higher elevation, but they want a corridor that's going to reach the most people too, that gets used the most, because it jumps from site to site. Careful what you wish for. I mean, we've already had troubles with one tower that was proposed at one time in our township, and nobody wanted it even close to their place. But what we have to, and what the people have to understand out there, is that if a large corporation like this gets involved, it will be federally regulated. There's a stamp that they have that says we don't have any rights or say on any of this stuff and how they do it. The only thing I believe, Candace, and you could maybe help me with that, is that if they go to build on a tract of land, possibly we can get a building permit that it's not going to fall down on somebody's house or cross some power lines or something like that. But I mean, everything's engineered as it goes anyways. But I don't think we actually have much teeth into anything that if a large company like that wanted to come through to get site to site to site, because they all have to have a sight line of some sort, we don't have much choice as to where it's going to go. So.
Right. We do have our policy, as we know, that we adopted about a year ago or so. And we have learned that the companies, although they don't require us they still always want to ensure that they are addressing any local concerns and follow any policy that we do have in place, which includes public consultation, public engagement, aesthetic requirements, and of course the building component to ensure that it's a viable structure. And all of those things, they seem to work with the township. But again, the property owner, we can't keep wanting this and then keep saying no. So, you know, we really have to plead with our property owners to be at least open to the conversation and to provide the opportunity, because we don't want to provide so much pushback that we get overlooked.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, I mean, and there's other ways that they could do things. I mean, like white lights in the daytime that are not very visible for us, basically, and then a red light at night that's not so hard in your eyes. So I mean, there's ways that you can help with it, but I mean, it's still a tall structure that's in your line of sight. But you want it, you want the broadband. This is the only way we're going to get it in our rural areas. We don't have the way to get lines from one house to another house to another house. It has to be wireless mostly. So anyway, that's enough I have to say. Any other comments from council, staff, anything else? Your perspective on this? No. Okay, then we're looking then for a motion then to receive and motion to receive and support, I guess, is what we're looking for. Deputy Mayor Burt and Councillor Walsh, all in favor, and that's carried. Thank you. Next on the agenda is Councillor Liaison reports. Anyone have anything they're bringing forward today? Okay, seeing no hands. On to the CAO Clerk Treasurer's list. I was going to skip it, but I think we'll just get right into it here.
That's a good choice. Good choices today. I have lots of goodies for you today. So as promised during the action list, the strategic plan. So I'd like to thank all of the council members and the chosen staff members that have submitted their completed strategic plan survey. I am telling the results of that now. And those results are going to go back to the next stage of the process, which is focus groups. So I'll be reaching out to each individual council member to arrange a different Zoom meeting where you will be participating in a more consolidated group of potentially community members, management team, and yourself as a council representing council on that focus group. And that's each focus group will be tackling a different topic of the strategic plan and really drilling down into some good discussions in regards to the vision of the township for the next few years. So that's very exciting. And the results, sensing some themes. I think we're headed in it was nice. It wasn't a muddled where, you know, the direction isn't being seen. As a council and as a staff, our thoughts and our visions are somewhat in alignment, even though you're answering a question individually, isolated on your own with no exterior input. So that's very exciting. I wanted to bring council up to speed on the Police Services Board. So what has happened is another Peterborough County municipality asked for Peterborough County to pull together a meeting of all the mayors and CAOs to discuss how we are going to move forward with this discussion. So that took place. The mayor and I attended that meeting. The direction out of that meeting was that the CAOs would meet and come together and decide the process. That was the direction given. The CAOs met the very next day and put together a process. What that is going to look like is between April 19th and April 29th, all 7 PSBs meet for their quarterly. So kind of worked out well. There's going to be a proposal given to each police service board that is going to be defined questions. We're still working on the questions. They should be finalized hopefully tomorrow, if not the next day. 3 to 5 questions that'll basically define the conversation for each police services board. So each board is going to be reviewing the same question. It's going to go to police, you know, the composition of the board, the size of the board, you know, their feelings on that. All of the CAOs then will be given the feedback from the Police Services Board. Not all the CAOs sit on the board like I do, so they'll be given that feedback. We are then meeting in the afternoon of the 29th after the last meeting. A PSB board meeting happens in the morning of the 29th. All the CAOs are getting together in the afternoon to look at all of the feedback, to then come up with a draft proposal that will meet with the alignment of the majority of the boards. That draft will then go back to all of the 7 councils for ratification in the first meeting of May. So what it's looking like, you'll take a look, the province really would appreciate 1 board per detachment. So they are hoping for 1 police services board for Peterborough OPP detachment. That does not mean that there can't be 2, but we need to, the justification of having a second one definitely would have to be pretty strong, as larger centers do it with a 5-member board that are 100 times our size. So it would have to be a pretty strong justification. Of the board, 20% needs to be provincial appointees and 20% need to be community representatives. So that would mean 2 community reps that represent all 7 and 2 provincial appointees that represent all 7. So there's going to be some discussion, obviously, as to whose municipality those community reps and provincial representatives come from, whether each municipality wants to have a representative at the table, a voting member, as well as the First Nation communities as well are participating in this discussion, and whether they are going to sit on our board or have their own individual board. So all of these discussions are happening. I will obviously keep council up to speed on our meeting on the 27th of April. I will be able to give you, during my CAO list, a verbal update as to kind of where the status of it is. And then May 11th, you'll see the draft as to whether you will agree with the proposal that's come forward or whether you disagree. Obviously, we're looking for alignment. This is not easy to pull 7 boards into one. Not everyone is going to get what we want. Not everyone is going to have the luxury of having a provincial rep, a community rep, and a council rep on the board, because then we'd have a 21-member board that's going to meet monthly, and it's just not viable. You can't make decisions with a board that large. Even with if the First Nation communities are going to have a representative on the board, that would be a board of 13. If they're not, then we would have a board of 11, 7 representatives, 1 from each municipality, 2 community, 2 provincial, and then 1 from Curve Lake and 1 from Hiawatha would be the 13. Or if they choose to have their own boards, that would be the 11. So that our police services board is the first one to meet in the county on April 19th. So really looking forward to getting that proposal in my hands. I have yet to receive it, to get it out into the agenda to the members of our police service board, to get them thinking about what they'd like to see moving forward. Yeah, and if you have any thoughts or comments or questions outside of this conversation, would like to speak to me offline, of course, you know how to get in touch with me. 1 municipality has to submit the proposal on behalf of all 7. Selwyn, as being the largest municipality in the township, they have a pretty large volunteer policing committee. Policing in that township just looks a little different than all the rest of us. So they are going to submit, they volunteered to submit the proposal on behalf of all of us. To give you an update on the town hall ramp replacement, it looks like that project is slated to hopefully begin next week. The locates are in, just getting the final paperwork sorted out, and hopefully Mother Nature is going to cooperate in regards to rain. But we are looking worst case scenario, not next week, the week after, you're going to start to see that project started. And then I would suspect we will be meeting our July 1st target date. So we should be completely done by July. The library courtyard project, we are in the middle of the procurement. So we are moving forward. You're going to see basically those two projects are going to run in tandem, as that project has to be completed by August. All of the outdoor furniture has been ordered. The outdoor shelter has been ordered. Garbage recycling receptacle has been ordered. Bike racks been ordered. Everything in regards to the plan. And we're currently working on, the landscaping portion of the project right now. The fence on Charles Street swale, that has been a pretty hot topic in the township in the last couple of weeks. So that deep ditch that runs between Albine Street and Helen Street on this Charles Street road allowance, that is going to see fencing in the backyards of the affected residents, the property owners, come Thursday. We found out this morning it's going to be Thursday. So we have done a mad dash and got letters and hand delivered them to all of the affected property owners this morning, so that they're aware. It is going to be a galvanized chain link fence in the back of those properties as a health and safety barrier only. There will be an armor stone head wall that's going to be installed at the one end, as well as it'll be sodded. No, it won't. It'll be topsoil and seeded once Mother Nature allows. So it aesthetically, I think it's going to come a long way versus what was there as the old road allowance previously. The offsite sanitary project for the township is slated to start on Victoria Street. You're going to see Victoria Street ripped apart starting the week of April 26th. So that project is going to get underway. So that's exciting, but it's going to definitely have some impact in that area of the village. So two more big topics. Obviously, everyone is aware of the community center ICIP funding success with that application. So that's amazing. It's slated to be an approximately $1.1 million expansion. We're going to be rebuilding a holistic, healthy, and inclusive community center that's going to impact the community for years to come. So super, super excited to get that started. First step, I have my first meeting scheduled tomorrow in regards to start working on the procurement. So first step is RFP to go out to secure the design contractor, looking at whether we're going to do a design build approach by a contractor that does design and build, similar to our public works building when it was built, the community center when it was originally built, trying to not reinvent the wheel here. We want to keep this process as simple as possible. So design build probably makes the most sense in this scenario, but why need to obviously procure that company? So then we can actually get down to all of the questions that everybody's asking us since that announcement went out. And what is it going to look like? What is the equipment that's going in there? And all of those great questions that I would love to have answers to. We did do some pretty heavy public consultation on this during the master recreation plan. So we do have over 400 responses as to what type of equipment the community would like to see in there as a whole. But we will be reaching out to some stakeholders in the community that specialize in this area of expertise to take a look at what they see the room, whether it's a fitness room or whether it's one of the auxiliary rooms, what they're going to see, how we're going to tie that into the existing community center, what's the entrance going to look like. It's a 24 access scenario, what that's going to look like. So there's lots of conversations still to have, considering we want to break ground next year. The other big conversation and our last conversation, Mayor, so thank you for indulging me, is MHBC planner. So as I mentioned during the action list, there will be a delegation. I have retained MHBC planners, Jamie Robinson, who will be assisting the township with the communication with the upper tier in regards to the official plan. So the official plan conversation is broken out into two components. One is growth management. So growth management is a lands needs feasibility study, which the upper tier has already awarded their consultant the project, and that's what they're starting to work on now. So it's my job to ensure that the township's position has been clearly defined and that what we're asking for, whether that's a increase in our settlement area, whether that is just an increase in employment land designations, all of these things, we need to ensure that the township is positioned correctly from a planning perspective. It can't be, oh, just because we've issued, 400 building permits in the last 3 years, and we want it. That's not going to fly in this world. We need to ensure that our position is justified with a planning justification under the provincial policy statement and the growth plan issued by the province, as well as our own infrastructure assessment report. All of those need to collide and define the position and where the township wants to go. Conversation number one. That conversation number two is the official plan itself, which is all the conversations that we've been having to date, such as today, about the agricultural parcels, whether we're going to see 1 designation, 4 designations, different land sizes, land needs. Township staff would love to get rid of the August 1st, 1983 date. That's just so random that a lot of municipalities are moving away from that random date. So there's lots of things. That is step 2. The growth management comes first. That being said, there has been lots of conversations going on. The TAC committee, the task force for the official plan, still meets monthly. Ed and I are meeting virtually with Keziah of Peterborough County to go over the first go round of the big township official maps and taking to look at designations and do some housekeeping first. So that's coming up at the end of this month. So things are moving ahead, but there's no point in getting too far ahead in the official plan details until the growth management piece is determined, and make sure we get our growth allocations. So the province says you're allowed this many units of growth out to 2051. And then the upper tier designates those out to the lower tiers. As being one of the 4 serviced townships, that does solidify our position, as well as we have capacity in our water and sanitary. And we're also at the table having those discussions and willing to grow the capacity in our infrastructure, the EAN for the water tower, the aquifer capacity study. All of these things are going to help solidify our position. So MHVC is going to formulate all of that. All of the work we've been doing, they're going to put it in a planning report with the planning jargon to give to the upper tiers planning consultant that's going to justify why Asphodel-Norwood wants what it wants. And that's a huge piece of the pie. They are going to come to basically, I've asked them to do an official plan 101 conversation. So why we're doing what we're doing, why we need growth management, why we need an official plan update. What does the official plan do? You see 20% of what the official plan actually does when you see an amendment. The official plan governs our day-to-day conversations in planning. You only see it when an amendment has to happen that changes it, because it can't be a change by staff. It has to be changed by council. So I think before we get into the nitty-gritty of the growth management and the official plan details, we need to take a step back. You guys don't live in this world every day, and out of respect for that, we need to have an education session. So that's going to come at the next meeting by Jamie Robinson. So start thinking potentially. I'll get the presentation out to you as fast as I can, even if it's outside of the agenda, as fast as I can get it to you, so you can start formulating some questions and some thoughts, and maybe get some of that to me in advance, so he has that. Maybe he can add that right into the presentation to save time, or to answer your question, or we can provide those answers in advance. And that's it, I promise.
Thanks. All right, Councillor Walsh, you had your hand up.
Through you, Mayor. Candace, on the official plan, we will still follow. We're not going to create our own township of Asphodel official plan. We will still follow Peterborough County, but with our inputs in there to the best of our ability.
Yes. So what will happen is there'll be an overall county official plan, but each township will have its own section. So I can tell you that some of the TAC discussions, there is a vast difference of opinion on certain topics, just based on the makeup and the topography of each municipality. So we're obviously heavy agriculture. So we have, our conversation leans towards that, where the northern municipalities lean towards waterfront. They have waterfront associations. They have, tons of tourism. So that's their focus. So we will have our own section of the official plan. If we wanted to take on our own, that is an option, and Jamie will touch on that at our next meeting. We would have to hire a full-time planner to take that on, because the exercise that the upper tier takes on, they would obviously not be doing that for us anymore, and we would have to take on all of those ourselves, as well as the province still governs, you know, subdivisions have to be approved by the upper tier anyway, things like that. So that's part of the conversation, but I highly suspect we'll stay where we are.
That makes sense. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions from council on this? Okay, I have a couple comments then. So Candace, when you touched on the PSB board, the police board, just if we do lose our provincial representative and our township representative, I'll still be at the table anyways to talk, and you'll be there probably too. But that doesn't mean that Asphodel-Norwood's going to be left out of the loop as far as having any suggestions brought forward from our township or anything like that. So
No.
people get the wrong idea that we're going to lose representation when they say they're going to amalgamate the boards together, but it's not true. So
No, not at all. It's a good point, Mayor. Not at all. So it's been made very clear to the police services boards currently meet quarterly, 4 times a year. As you can suspect and imagine, based on conversations you have with the residents, issues obviously come up more than just once a quarter. Township staff deals with the OPP representative, with Lisa Darling or Chris Galeazza, on a regular basis. And that's where the majority of the interaction between the township and the OPP takes place. And that will 100% not change at all. But there's a lot of conversation, obviously, that still needs to go into the composition. And I think you'll probably see hopefully you'll see a rotating. So if you don't have a community rep from your municipality in this term, which they're looking at potentially 2 or 3 year terms, then, you know, your municipality could potentially get one the next time. So you're not seeing one community rep from one municipality serving 5 terms and no other municipality, you know, getting a chance at it. But the June 7th deadline that we have to have our proposal in to the province doesn't include really that much nitty gritty. That's going to be determined through the bylaw that's going to govern that new police service board. They just need to know, we're going to have 1 board. Do you want 2 boards? What's the number of people on the board? What's the size? What's the composition? Very generalized terms. If you don't have what you want in by June 7th, the province is going to do it for you.
Yep, thank you. And my other comment, I guess, too, when you talked about the ramp in front of the town hall, what's the timeline on staff getting a letter out to some of the user groups to give them a heads up, even though the town hall is closed at this time? But I'm sure staff will have a letter drafted or brought forward somehow.
Yeah, it's my understanding that that's already happened. I know the food bank, obviously being the bigger user, has already been well notified a long time ago. And as far as I know, the office staff has reached out to the other user group. Really, there's nobody that's having access to it. So in any access, if you're referring to potentially the Lions Club is still going to be able to access down where they need to, with or without the ramp through the outside door. We'll make sure that access is available to get down underneath. So there's really no impact to them at this time, but I will make sure that the office staff had followed direction and got the communication out probably about 3 weeks ago.
Yeah, I thought as much. Okay, well, thank you for that. All right, any other questions on the CEO clerk treasurer's list? No comments, concerns, nothing? Okay, moving on then into general business. Does any council have anything under general business that they'd like to bring forward? Councillor Walsh, please.
Just kind of a question to the rest of our team is the AMO conference is in August in London. It will be virtual. Was just wondering if anybody, I've kind of seen the initial topic list. There's some interesting topics on there. Is anybody else thinking and planning of possibly going? You wouldn't be virtual, but.
Deputy Mayor Burt.
Yeah, through you, Mayor. I attended Roma, well, virtually earlier in the year. So no, I, for one, will not be attending this year.
Just a comment on that, Councillor Walsh, if you're planning on attending, if there's any topics that we can think of at any time that AMO could possibly help us with, and there is ministers, I believe, that show up there and whatever, if we had to have a delegation on something, by all means, that we could put a request in, I'm sure. So,
I'm also attending.
Yep.
At least I've registered, put it that way.
there you go.
I always register in case we want to talk to one of the ministers. But if we're not headed down that road, then I'll probably just cancel my registration. If we're not meeting with a minister, I won't be attending.
Yep. Well, at this time, it's still a bit early, I guess, but I'm not sure if staff had anything in mind, or
Not right.
council.
I'm not prepared for that conversation, Mayor, actually.
Yeah,
I haven't
that's
given
fine.
it a whole lot of thought.
Perfect. Great. Anyone else under general business, anything? All right, I do. I had a good Zoom meeting the other day. I was invited to a meeting with, let me see, the Mount in Peterborough for homelessness and one thing after another, as well as Havelock, Belmont, Methuen, and Asphodel-Norwood, and David Pacini, David Smith, our MPPs, and Honorable Marion Monsef for the funding that was coming forward for our arena, basically. So that was a big announcement, but they wanted to have the big Zoom meeting, and it was recorded, and I believe it'd be on her website, Marion's, but it was a good one, a good meeting, but I had to straighten them up on a few things because David Pacini, he is a great advocate for our township, but he turns around and gives me all the accolades in front of everyone else, saying what a good job that the mayor's doing in Asphodel-Norwood, and I'm very proud of him and one thing after another. But after he was done, I said, thank you. I said, but I just have to reiterate the fact that without a good council that helps support everything that's going on, and without good staff that get the plans and get the grants written and one thing after another, we wouldn't be where we are here today. So all I'm doing is I took the hat off there, and I said thank you, but I took the acknowledgement for all of us because we all make a good team. So that's basically where I left it off with them, and they took it and understood where I was coming from, because not one person could make what's happening in our township happen, and it is a team effort. So hats off to everyone. That's all I have to say on that. So thanks. There's no closed session today. There's no notices of motion today. And I'll ask the clerk then to read our bylaws, please.
Thank you, Mayor. Being a bylaw to authorize the execution of an agreement between Her Majesty the Queen and Right of Ontario and the Township of Asphodel-Norwood, be read a first, second, and third time, and numbered bylaw 2021-20.
Motion by Councillor Archer, seconded by Deputy Mayor Burt. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you.
Being a bylaw to authorize entering into a merger agreement between Stephen Charles Carter and Mandy Lynn Carter and the Corporation of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood, be read a first, second, and third time, and numbered bylaw 2021-21.
Motion by Councillor Walsh, seconded by Councillor War. All in favor? And that's carried. Thank you.
And confirming bylaw, being a bylaw to confirm the proceedings of the regular meeting of the Council of the Township of Asphodel-Norwood held on April 13th, 2021, be read a first, second, and third time, and numbered bylaw 2021-22.
Thank you. Motion by Councillor Archer, seconded by Deputy Mayor Burt. All in favor?
Nobody likes the decisions made today?
I guess nobody wants to leave. All in favor? Yes, I've seen the hands. Thank you. And then, so you see our future meeting schedule in front of you on our agenda. And I'll ask for a motion then to adjourn the meeting held of today, April 13th, 2021, be adjourned at 2:42. And then our next regular council meeting will be April 27th, 2021, or at the call of the chair. Motion by Deputy Mayor Burt, seconded by Councillor Walsh. All in favor? And that's carried. Well, thank you very much, Council. That was a great meeting. We covered a lot of ground. Thank you for those that have been listening in via YouTube. And once again, thank you, staff, for the professional job and a good meeting overall. Thank you very much and have a good day.
You too.
Thanks, everyone. Bye.